Jesus.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind when someone mentions Frank Darabont's 2007 sci-fi psychological horror film, The Mist? Well, if you ask me, it's gotta be those terrifying, otherworldly creatures inducing nothing but paranoia and panic even as I speak now. I mean, The Mist is a creature feature at the end of the day. There's no second thought about it. I clearly remember the movie for the monsters, and if I'm being honest, Darabont's The Mist happens to be a personal favorite to this very day. I wholeheartedly love everything about this movie, especially the premise, and dare I disregard this movie's notoriously gut-wrenching ending. So, if you want me to do a beat-by-beat plot recap of this film, or say a video on every creature featured in the movie, let me know, because I'm taking requests. But for now, let's get back to the main contents of today's video, where I'll be breaking down The Mist for all of you. You think you know everything about this interdimensional environmental invasion that lets another world's ecology spill into ours? Why don't you stay tuned to the end of the video and find out if you really do. Everybody ready out there? I say let's kick this off. What is the mist actually made of? Truth be told, this is a question that I've often found myself asking. Is the mist simply fog? Some kind of a weapon or an alien environment that happens to carry with it an entire alien food chain? Well, given that I happened to rewatch Darabont's movie just 2 days ago, I think I have a fitting answer. First things first, the mist is not to be mistaken for normal thick fog because it's anything but that. In simple words, the mist, as speculated by characters in Stephen King's novella and Darabont's 2007 movie, is an opaque interdimensional atmospheric incursion that's tied to a secret experiment, the Arrowhead project, at the nearby military base. Now, those of you who've seen the film will remember the mist first being sighted in the morning after a freak electrical storm, spreading past Long Lake through Bridgeton, Maine, and then across an unknown but significantly large amount of area well beyond the town. In no time, the mist takes up the form of a dense white wall with an immense biological range. Mind you, here I am talking about a fully functioning hostile alien ecosystem that simply makes our world their habitat. In the film, it's quickly established that the foreboding mist, despite obscuring visibility and overflowing with creatures that simply don't belong to Earth, isn't toxic. People can breathe the mist, and it's also not something to be classified as sentient, living, or even mind-controlling for that matter. Additionally, I'd also like to emphasize that the mist is an alien environment because, as you can see, it tends to behave like the weather and visual conditions of another world thrust into our own. Try recalling the scene when David Drayton, his son Billy, and their neighbor Brent Norton go to the supermarket to stock up on their food and supplies. The visuals of the police cars speeding down the street and the sound of sirens in the background makes the mist appear as both moody and mysterious. You see, when the mist begins to envelop the supermarket, nobody has a clue what horror is in store for them. Everybody inside the supermarket initially thinks that they're probably dealing with a pollution cloud, further suggesting it to be some kind of chemical explosion. Did Project Arrowhead open the door? While the film strongly suggests Project Arrowhead as the primary cause, Frank Darabont deliberately keeps many things hidden from the audience. I'm going to cite a few examples here that'll help you understand things a little better. Let's talk about the scene that has David, his son, and their neighbor heading to the supermarket. Remember, on the way, their car passes a number of military convoys, which has David and Brent bringing up the Arrowhead project in their conversation, and the duo joking about the stories that they've heard about the base, especially about a crash flying saucer up there with frozen alien bodies. Next, remember the military guys trapped inside the supermarket? It's pretty clear from their demeanor that they know that their military base is connected to the current predicament, and that they're terrified the crowd will eventually find things out. So much so, 2 out of the 3 military personnel even end up committing suicide inside the local dock of the supermarket. Now, considering that Darabont had initially planned a very different opening sequence, or should I say a scene that almost revealed the film's biggest mystery, I'm so glad he didn't go ahead with it. Mark my words when I say Darabont's unused sci-fi heavy prologue scene would have shown the viewers the origin of the mist right at the very beginning. Darabont's original opening scene would not only have given us a peek into the Arrowhead project, but also placed us right in the middle of an experiment conducted by the military scientists. No points for guessing that the scientists were trying to open a portal into another dimension, and things were looking quite positive. With the storm aspect not altered, it played a rather big part, especially with lightning striking the base because that's what overloads the experiment in the first place. Now, with the portal expanding, the eponymous mist emits and begins to shroud everything in it. As the gas chamber dividing the doomed scientist cracks, there's chaos, screaming, and the audience is introduced to the opening title. That would certainly have been something, but if you ask me, that particular opening scene would have definitely made things less interesting. I mean, the mist is undeniably the film's main attraction, and it's the mystery and uncertainty that keeps everyone glued to their seats through the runtime of 126 minutes. I think think it's a great thing that Darabont wanted his audience to experience the same level of anxiety as his movie's characters. Lastly, to answer the question if the project created the mist or unintentionally allowed something else to pass through, I firmly believe Project Arrowhead simply unlocked the wrong door. How does the mist turn Earth into an alien habitat? In my opinion, the solitary fact that you can breathe the mist is what makes it categorically dangerous, even before the tentacled monstrosities make their presence known. The mist is downright lethal because it simply pounces on our world, bringing along with it monsters from another dimension, and us not even having the slightest idea of how to survive them. No wonder the creatures, each of them distinctively designed with extreme perfection and uniqueness, make Earth's environment their hunting ground. The mist cleverly obliterates visibility and has something as important as a medium like sound work in its favor. Furthermore, the mist completely changes the everyday surroundings that people are used to. Now, generally in a situation like this, people typically tend to rely on their phones and radio for information, but the mist works its way and abruptly cuts out all kinds of network of communications, thereby turning something as significant as information into guesswork. With no signal and electricity, it almost feels like you're back in the Dark Ages. In the 2007 film, the only proper visible area is within the store. But beyond those supermarket glass plates, there's white emptiness where no one can make any sense of danger, distance, or direction. Why does the mist carry a complete food chain? If there was only one monster coming through Project Arrowhead, what Bridgeton would have endured could easily have been listed as a creature problem. However, this was clearly not the case, and what arrived instead was an entire ecosystem. And mind you, not just any, but an alien one. The horde of creatures on display irrefutably indicates that the mist contained fragments of a completely alien biosphere. Greg Nicotero, who primarily worked on the movie's creature design and makeup effects, mainly kept in mind that the creatures were animals, albeit from a different dimension, that had been misplaced into a new habitat. That being said, coming up with original designs for the creatures that wouldn't look like those we've seen in previous films was also a major challenge and the primary goal, which is why Darabont was constantly in touch with Stephen King all throughout the creative process. Naturally, Greg's knowledge of cinema and genre history worked out in favor of the 2007 movie, and I believe everyone who's seen The Mist will agree with me here. Every creature on display, be it tentacles from Planet Nex, scorpion flies, ptera buzzards, gray widowers, arachnid lobster to the behemoth, all of them point toward a larger ecosystem, one that's completely incomprehensible to humans. So I think it's safe to admit that the town of Bridgeton was not overrun by malevolent creatures with a common goal. The residents unfortunately found themselves in a food chain where they were simply irrelevant. How does the mist control the battlefield? Well, there's no doubt that the mist itself is the creature's biggest advantage. It not only helps them hide, but it also has the environment on their side. You see, the mist has already set up the battleground, so the creatures don't really need to outwit the humans. The mist categorically operates on a tactical level, cutting off human range, forcing them to make close-quarter decisions, and most importantly, letting the alien creatures choose when they want to be seen. Let me cite a few examples from the movie. If you could recall the loading dock sequence, everything inside the supermarket seemed safe and secure until the bag boy, Norm, decided to venture outside to fix the store's emergency generator. The illusion of safety simply vanishes into thin air the moment enormous, spiky tentacles of an unseen entity grab Norm, giving his character a graphically gory death, one that is certainly not for the faint of heart. The line between refuge and wilderness gets even more hazy during the infamous night attack sequence. While resorting to lights seems like a logical thing to do, the lights end up turning the entire supermarket into a scene of carnage as it draws the highly aggressive and absolutely lethal scorpion flies and the large nightmarish ptera buzzards inside the store. That being said, not every absurd-looking interdimensional creature seen in Darabont's movie is attracted to light, but they're all innately animalistic in nature, and for some reason their attacks on the humans have clear logic behind them. At the end of the day, they're just animals acting on instinct. So in a way, the mist reverses the logic of normal safety, setting in fear, paranoia, and anarchy. Right after the supermarket night assault scene, a terrified and visibly shaken Amanda Dumfries is seen telling David that she witnessed creatures fly into the store that shouldn't exist. This is a clear case of the psychological impact that the mist has over humans, and if you ask me, I think it's batshit crazy. How far did the mist spread? Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, the viewers are given a quick glimpse of a newspaper story, which reports that the thunderstorm that took place is so far the largest electric storm on record, and as a result, thousands are in the dark as power outages grip the region. Although the movie uses the newspaper article to confirm that there's been a major regional disaster in the Bridgeton area, it intentionally keeps the audience in the dark about whether or not the rest of the world is also affected. Naturally, this has everyone pondering if Bridgeton was the only one caught in the fog or if the rest of the world was also at risk because of a larger dimensional breach. There's a scene in the film where Amanda and David are seen speculating about the mist. While Amanda wonders how far the mist has spread and makes the assumption that it may have expanded across the entire eastern seaboard, David tells her that there's a very high possibility that the mist has spread all over the world. No wonder, the most terrifying part about the mist is that nobody inside the mist gets a map. The survivors' lack of information somehow acts as a catalyst, making the whole incident feel worldwide. I do agree that the film doesn't confirm anything, but it's this uncertainty that primarily makes the mist so atmospheric. Moreover, the failure of radio communication, and then add to this blocked roads and deserted streets, that implies the crisis has spread well outside the town. Remember the behemoth sighting after David and the group managed to escape from the supermarket? I mean, just one look at the incomprehensibly massive six-legged creature whose towering height itself is obscured by the fog. Let that dawn upon you that the breach has unquestionably impacted a massive area. Last but not least, while the organized response from the military shows that civilization still exists outside the survivors' immediate view, it still doesn't provide a status report for the entire world. Why does the mist break human society before the creatures do? I think the key question that one should be asking here is, how does the mist turn a store full of survivors into enemies? Remember the religious fanatic known as Mrs. Carmody, who nearly had most of the people trapped in the supermarket proselytized. Well, let's analyze things here first. While Darabont introduces us to a civilized society, he wastes no time in planting fears into the minds of the people. Like David said, as long as the machines are working and one can dial 911, it's a civilized society. But the minute those facilities are taken away, people are thrown into the dark and they scare the shit out of each other. Rules don't apply anymore, and people will go back to being primitive. Well, this is exactly what happens in the film. The mist doesn't need to permeate the supermarket to make people kill each other. All it has to do is make certainty impossible. Now, let's take a look at the faction split in the supermarket. While David's gang is seen resorting to rational ideas like lights, ropes, weapons, and expeditions so as not to succumb to the mist, Mrs. Carmody, on the other hand, is seen providing divine explanation and human sacrifice. The movie, not even for once, confirms that the mist has mind-controlling powers, and it's the human society that collapses. Well, isn't this the very nature of humans to fear things that they don't understand in the first place? Additionally, I'd like to state another example here. When the last remaining soldier confirms everyone's darkest fears, the whole concept of dread twists the truth into violence before anyone can use it to their advantage. As for the character of Mrs. Carmody, I'd like to believe that she isn't someone who's trying to be a bad person just for the sake of it. She's someone who's genuinely terrified. You can see that in her eyes. The thing is, everyone is going to react differently when they're afraid, and because the mist is so unpredictable, Carmody's character gives everyone something to cling to, and in this case, someone to blame. She just happens to make a majority of the people feel like they're in charge of an uncontrollable situation. What survival rules does the mist create? I pretty much have a fair idea that you're not going to like the first survival rule because believe me when I say, it's absolutely brutal. Every logical decision you make can end up killing you. While the film does suggest that staying behind solid barriers, which in this case is the supermarket, minimizing noise and exposure, moving in a group, and employing weapons can be somewhat helpful, one has to keep in mind that none of these are solutions for the long term. You see, the mist is categorically dangerous because it's quite capable of changing situations more quickly than any human can comprehend. Why don't I give you a few examples here? Let's take a look at the rope expedition scene. After Brent and a few others attempt to leave the store, telling the rest of the group that they're going to send for help, another character, a biker to be more precise, joins Brent's group walking out into the thick blinding fog. The biker has a long rope tied around himself to stay connected with the people inside the store. Things seem to go well for a while until something massive and unseen in the mist attacks him. When the rest drag the rope back, they pull in a bloody rope tied to a severed lower half of the biker's body. The point I'm trying to make here is that despite the idea of making sense, it didn't work because the thing about the mist is that it conceals dangers, creatures in this case, that can simply ambush without one even realize. Every rational thing clashes with the mist. Where light's supposed to offer visibility, it ends up attracting some of the worst creatures. Let's talk about the final car journey. I know it did give David and the group some form of movement and short-term security, but it came at the cost of lives of the characters Ollie, Myron, and Ambrose. While a car is undoubtedly a moving shelter, there are no circumstances to be considered an escape from an environmental invasion. Can the mist be contained, cleared, or killed? The most shocking revelation that the film features is that the mist can be stopped, but then again, the movie simply refuses to tell us how until it's a little too late. Everyone who's seen the film knows how the mist ended. With the intervention of the US military, the mist is seen to dissipate, at least locally. What the climax demonstrates is that the invasion is not something that can never be stopped, but having said that, the film also doesn't specifically disclose how to stop the invasion. All we see is the military exterminating the creatures in a particular area. With soldiers marching through the clearing fog and military vehicles carrying survivors, it appears that the operations recovered control of the specific region. However, what's not shown, and in my opinion should have been shown in the film, is the shutdown of the military base that was connected to the Arrowhead project. Furthermore, the question of whether the mist can be contained, killed, or cleared unfortunately remains unanswered because it's unclear whether the creatures are actually dead everywhere or simply driven back. Also, in contrast to 2007's film ending, King's 1980 novella, which is also titled The Mist, has a very different finale. King's story climax has David and his group driving south through a foggy New England England, where they come upon more mysterious creatures. After stopping for the night, David hears someone over the radio say Hartford, a moment that gives him, as well as the readers, a glimmer of hope and possibilities. Why The Mist still works as horror and what changed in other versions. One of the key aspects of Darabont's The Mist is the way the director handles The Mist. Given the fact that horror is a genre that Darabont has literally grown up with, as stated by him in an exclusive interview with IGN back in 2008. His 2007 movie was more of a throwback to all the movies he'd grown up watching. If you ask me, it pretty much shows because in his film, Darabont has designed The Mist as a setting, visual restriction, ecological breach, and a psychological stress test all at once. With a limited budget and backed by a very talented cast, Darabont had The Mist filmed over a fast-paced 37-day shoot. In a way, the limitations pretty much helped create a stripped-down, old-school horror feeling. And in case you didn't know, Darabont also had The Mist released in black and white as a special bonus feature on the DVD and Blu-ray editions. Also, another important feature here as to why The Mist still works as horror is that it's no secret that Darabont's film was a mix of practical effects and CGI. The eponymous Mist was a creation of the late special effects artist Daryl Pritchett, and it was practically achieved on set using air pressure and specialized chilled vapor. Nicotero, as mentioned before, worked on the monster designs and makeup effects, while Everett Burrell oversaw the visual effects. Stephen King's novella served as the basis for a TV series that was released on Spike in 2017 under the same name. Spanning across 10 episodes, the Mist TV series was another adaptation of King's intriguing premise featuring another town, different characters, and separate rules. And it's not to be regarded as a follow-up to Darabont's film. Sadly, the sci-fi horror thriller TV show was cancelled after just one season. I hate to admit, but I'm pretty much at the end of today's video. To sum things up, The Mist is a hostile fragment of a different world that infiltrated ours. Now, Project Arrowhead may have opened the portal, but the food chain that emerged from the portal was not created by the base. Every creature the Mist contains is evidence that there's an ecosystem somewhere beyond Earth that is large enough to render humans obsolete. What really works in favor of the film is the mystery surrounding the Mist. You'll agree with me when I say that the movie never explains how the breach was closed. And for me, it's this unanswered mechanism that does the trick. You see, the Mist is scary because no amount of knowledge would make standing inside it feel safe. If you agree with me, you know what to do. Please don't hesitate to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like, subscribe to our channel. As for me, I promise to come back with another favorite video soon. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and as always,